Hi, I am Lunette. My sister didn't just vanish with my daughter on her wedding day. She ripped my heart apart, erased me from our family's story, and dared me to stay silent. But her vicious act ignited a firestorm of truth that shattered her perfect world and exposed her cruelty for all to see. Before we dive in, tell me, what time are you listening and where from? Drop it in the comments. I read everyone, because what you're about to hear isn't just about jealousy or family. It's about what happens when silence is mistaken for weakness and when love gets tested by blood. The envelope was thick, fancy, even with a gold-trimmed edge and a calligraphy-style return address. I already knew what it was. The wedding. Callista's wedding. Still, when I opened it at the kitchen table with Cece munching cereal beside me, I expected to see my name, Lunette and Lucas. Just that, nothing more, nothing less. But the invitation read, Lucas plus guest. I blinked, turned it over, looked again. At first I told myself it was a mistake, a printing error maybe, but then I saw the RSVP card tucked neatly behind the main invite. It said, "Let us know if you and Cece will attend." Not me, not Lunette, just Lucas and Cece. "You're nobody to her," the omission screamed, a silent stab in my chest. I didn't say anything right away. I folded it back carefully, slid it into the envelope like I was handling something radioactive. My hand stayed on the paper a beat too long. Lucas walked in, rubbing sleep from his eyes, already reaching for the coffee pot. "Wedding invite?" he asked. "Yep," I said without looking up. "Anything weird?" he added, casually, already sensing my silence. I handed it over. He read it once, then again. "Huh?" He scratched his neck. "It's probably just, I don't know, a formatting thing." I nodded, but the edges of my smile felt fake. "She's erasing you," his frown whispered, a truth he didn't yet voice. Lucas offered a soft chuckle. "I mean, people know who you are, Lunette. Apparently not everyone." Not my own sister, I thought, her betrayal a wound already festering. That night the phone rang. It was her. "Hey," Callista chirped, like she wasn't the reason I was quietly folding towels with clenched jaws. "You got the invite, right?" "I did." A pause. "I hope you're not reading too much into the name thing," she added. "People know who you are. You'll still get a good seat." "Good seat?" I asked, trying to keep my voice level. "You know what I mean," she laughed. "Front rows are pretty much family anyway." "I am family," I said. "You know what I mean," she repeated with that sugar-coated tone I'd heard since high school, the one that meant, "Stop making this about you, you're nothing to me," her laugh implied, a deliberate cut deepening the scar. Later that night, while brushing Cece's hair, she asked out of nowhere, "Why didn't Auntie write Mommy's name?" I froze for a second, brush mid-air. She probably just forgot. "Baby, why would she forget you?" Cece frowned. "You're the mommy." I smiled, but the kind that doesn't reach your eyes. "I guess that's a good question." "You're my everything," I thought, her innocent question fueling my resolve. After I tucked her in, I stood outside her bedroom door, hand on the frame, thinking back. It wasn't the first time. I remembered our school talent show. Callista introduced herself to everyone as an only child. At the Christmas party last year, she handed out gifts with name tags to Lucas and Cece. Mine was absent. My mother said nothing then, just sipped her wine and smiled like everything was perfectly normal. "You're invisible, Lunette," their silence screamed, a pattern of erasure etched in years. It was always something. Always almost nothing, but always there. The next morning, while sorting laundry, I found that birthday card again, the one from 2 years ago, silver glitter glued on the edges, a cheap Hallmark smile inside. "To Lucas and Cece, happy family," Callista had written. My name not even in the margins. I held the card for a moment, then placed it at the bottom of the basket and kept folding. "You've been erasing me forever," I whispered, the card a relic of her cruelty. Later, I called my mother. I told her about the invitation, about the name, about the RS. She sighed before I even finished. Oh, Lunette, you know how your sister is. Just let her have her moment, okay? I knew what that meant. It always meant stir the pot. I bit my lip and stared out the window. The clouds hung heavy that day, low enough to press against your chest. You're always the problem, her sigh accused, a mother's betrayal stinging deep. Around noon, I passed by the boutique on Eating Street, the one where Callista had once dragged me in years ago, pointing at a dress she swore would be hers one day. There it was in the window, cream silk, floral sleeves, a modest train. It hadn't sold. Neither had her grace. You can't buy decency, I thought. Her dress a mockery of her heart. That evening, as I was setting the table for dinner, a text popped up from her. Please don't wear anything too bold, okay? I want things to be elegant, simple. Lucas peeked over my shoulder. She texted that? Yep. He chuckled. Wow. I didn't laugh. You don't belong here, her words hissed, a calculated slight to diminish me. We ate in near silence that night, the only sound being Cece humming to herself while trying to fold her napkin into shapes. Look, Mommy, she said, holding up a crumpled, wrinkled square. It's a leaf. I made something pretty, even when we're not wanted. I blinked, swallowed hard. Lucas reached over and gently touched my hand, but I didn't look at him. Something in my chest, tight for days, pulled just enough to crack open. Not wide, but just enough. I whispered, more to myself than anyone else, this time, I'm not backing down. And with that napkin folded in silence, something inside me finally unfolded. The next Saturday, the three of us drove down to the engagement party. It was held at a local event hall, one of those converted farmhouses where everything smells faintly of hydrangea and money. The sun was sharp, almost too proud. Cece sat in her booster seat humming Twinkle Twinkle, her pink headband crooked and sticky from juice. I adjusted it as Lucas parked. You okay? He asked gently. Yep, I said, but my stomach felt like it was lined with pins. She's setting a trap, I thought. Her invitation a prelude to humiliation. Inside, the place was decorated in pastel florals and soft champagne tones, white chairs, gold chargers, string quartet humming something classical. Everyone looked like they belonged in a magazine. I held Cece's hand tightly as we approached the check-in table. Name, please? The young hostess asked, flipping through her clipboard without looking up. Lucas and Lunette Moreau and our daughter Cece? She frowned, scanned the list, then smiled, but it was the kind of smile you give someone when you can't find their reservation. Oh, you're under Lucas plus family table 18, just down that hallway. She gestured vaguely toward the back near the restrooms. You're nobody here, her smile sneered, echoing Callista's intent. I didn't say anything. Lucas thanked her. We walked past a series of beautifully arranged tables, linen napkins folded into roses, centerpieces glowing with floating candles, until we reached ours. Table 18 was shoved beside the hallway where guests went to the restroom, and the scent of floral air freshener barely masked the bleach. There was no decor, just a wilting arrangement and a tablecloth that didn't reach the floor. Our place cards read, Lucas plus family. No Lunette, no Cece, not even an attempt. You're erased, the cards declared, a public insult crafted by her hand. Across the table, an older relative squinted at us and leaned toward her husband. I thought she was just a friend, she whispered, too loudly. Lucas looked at me. Want me to say something? He murmured. I shook my head. We're fine, I said. But we weren't. As we settled in, I noticed something else. There were only 2 chairs. Lucas and I sat down while Cece stood beside me, fidgeting with her dress. I flagged down a young waiter walking past. Excuse me, could we get a chair for my daughter? He paused, apologetic. Sorry, ma'am. I was told only adults for this section. We weren't instructed to set for kids back here. Back here? Like we were storage or leftovers. You're less than nothing, the setup screamed, her cruelty on display. Lucas stood up. I'll go grab a chair, he said from the corner. I nodded, keeping my eyes down. My mother passed our table just then, her dress perfectly pressed, smile perfectly plastic. She caught my gaze and offered a quick half-smile. Then she mouthed, "Just ignore it." "You're complicit, Mom," I thought, her silence a betrayal as sharp as Callista's. Cece sat in Lucas's lap while he placed the extra chair beside us. No one helped, no one even noticed. One of the centerpieces tilted slightly, threatening to tip onto our table. I reached to steady it. Still no one came. A man across the way chuckled as he sipped his third glass of wine. "Well, you've got the best spot if you drink too much. Bathroom's right there," he joked. I gave him a polite smile. It didn't reach my eyes. Cece tried her best to stay cheerful. She folded her napkin again and whispered, "I'll sit on my lap if we don't have room." I looked at her, 4 years old, heart still wide open. No idea how people can shrink your presence down to nothing. "You're my reason to fight," I thought, her innocence igniting my resolve. Lucas gave me a glance across the table, steady, patient, quietly furious in the way only someone who's been watching for years can be. Then the clinking started. Callista stood up at the front of the room, her designer dress flowing like a river of approval. She tapped her champagne flute with a spoon, grinning. "I just wanted to say thank you all for being here to celebrate this next chapter. We're thrilled to have you. If you haven't already checked our registry, it's up on our wedding website. We've made it super easy." Applause. She made her way around the front tables, kissing cheeks, hugging family. She passed within 5-ish of us. She looked right over my shoulder like I was an empty chair. "You don't exist to me," her gaze hissed, a deliberate snub. Cece waved. Callista walked right by. By the time the dessert came out, I had convinced myself to wait it out, to make it through. For Cece until I stood near the bar, waiting for water, and heard Callista's voice behind me. "Honestly, I didn't even think they'd come." Laughter. Another woman chimed in. "I mean, after the invite thing." I turned, heart racing. Lucas was already at my side. He had heard, too. He didn't say anything, just reached for my hand and held it tightly. And in that stillness, I knew I wasn't just sitting by the bathroom. I was being flushed out. "You're trying to break me," I thought, her words a spark to my defiance. And when she asked me not to bring Cece to the wedding, I finally saw it for what it was. It came through just after breakfast. Lucas was rinsing our coffee mugs, and Cece had taken her applesauce to the floor, humming while scooping it with her fingers. I picked up my phone to check the weather forecast, just as the message came through. "Callista. Hey, just wanted to ask if you could leave Cece with someone. The ceremony will be long, and it's really a day for adults. Hope that's okay." I read it twice. Lucas leaned over my shoulder and read it a third time. He didn't say anything at first, but I could feel the shift in his body. Shoulders tighter, grip on the mug firmer. "She's 4, I muttered, more to myself. It's not like I'm bringing a crying newborn. Lucas raised an eyebrow. "It's not about noise, it's about exclusion. Don't make excuses for her, Lou. She's erasing our daughter." His tone growled, a fury matching mine. I tapped back to my home screen, trying to breathe. Maybe it was about logistics. Maybe Callista didn't want kids underfoot during the vows. Maybe. And then, like instinct, I opened Instagram. There she was, Callista, twirling in front of a mirror at her final dress fitting posted just an hour ago. The caption on her reel read, "Can't wait for a baby-free, drama-free, attention-on-me wedding," complete with sparkles and the smiling face emoji. The comments were already rolling in. "Yes, girls, set boundaries, you deserve the spotlight. Some people just bring kids to stay relevant. Yikes." My thumb froze mid-scroll. That last comment had a like from Callista herself. "You're a threat, Cece," her like declared. "A public attack on my child." The walls around me, around us, felt suddenly too small. I called her, rang once, twice, voicemail, no call back, no apology. I didn't want to text, but I did. Me, Cece's family. If she's not welcome, I'm not sure I am either. A minute passed, then another. Finally, a voice memo. I hesitated before playing it. Lucas reached for the phone, but I hit play first. Her voice poured out. Syrupy, sweet. Too practiced. Lon, I'm just trying to make this day about our new chapter. You've had your moment. Let me have mine. Okay, you understand. I nearly dropped the phone. I've had my moment. You're nothing, Lunette, her voice sneered, a calculated erasure of our bond. Lucas was already pacing. This isn't about a kid at a wedding, he said. This is about control, about rewriting the family picture. He wasn't wrong. My mom called later that evening. I knew she would. Sweetheart, you know how your sister gets. She just wants everything to be perfect. Don't take it personally. She asked me to leave my daughter home, Mom. I know. But sometimes being the bigger person means letting the small things go. I bit my lip until I tasted blood. Small? You're betraying us, Mom, I thought, her dismissal a wound as deep as Callista's. She didn't respond. As I hung up, I noticed Cece standing near the hallway, her favorite doll clutched to her chest. Mummy? She asked. Am I not part of the family anymore? I froze. It took everything in me not to crumble in that moment. I knelt beside her. Of course you are, baby. She nodded, but I could tell she didn't believe me. That night, after Cece fell asleep beside me, her breath soft and uneven, I scrolled through the family group chat. Dozens of messages about dress colors, seating charts, caterer choices. Not one mention of me or Cece. At midnight, a new post popped up on Callista's story. She was holding a sign that read, "No distractions, no drama, no apology." In the background of the picture, half cut off, was a framed photo from my wedding, my veil barely visible, as if someone had intentionally cropped it. My jaw clenched. I set the phone down and stared at the ceiling. She doesn't want a peaceful wedding, I whispered. She wants a spotless throne. You're building a lie, I thought, her post a final dagger in our sisterhood. And when Cece repeated what her aunt had told her, I knew this wasn't just exclusion, it was poison. The day after the text, we were invited to a pre-wedding dinner at my cousin Mara's house. Just family, the message had said. I hesitated, but Lucas thought it would be good to show up. Sometimes just being present is protest enough, he said, so we went. Mara's home was warm and bustling with chatter. A mix of summer salads and oven-heated casseroles lined the table. People greeted us with polite nods, but no one asked where we'd been or how we were doing. Conversations swirled around us like wind in a hallway, felt, but not meant for us. I helped Cece out of her little jacket. She twirled once, proud of her new dress, lavender with tiny daisies, and whispered, "Do you think Auntie Callista will like this one?" Before I could answer, the door opened. Callista stepped in. Her dress was white again, not quite bridal, but close enough to steal attention. She didn't wave, didn't greet us. Cece's little hand fluttered in the air as her aunt walked past, talking to everyone else, complimenting shoes and hugging second cousins. I saw Cece's hand drop. Her smile stayed, but it tightened. "You're nothing, Cece," her snub hissed, crushing a child's innocence. Dinner was informal, paper plates, buffet style. We found a couple of seats toward the edge of the room near the sliding glass door that stuck when you tried to close it. No one offered to scoot over. I didn't ask. A few minutes in, Cece tugged on my sleeve. "I need the bathroom." I nodded toward Harper, my teenage niece. "Would you mind taking her?" Harper smiled and took her hand. Cece looked back once before disappearing down the hallway. That's when it happened. Callista tapped her glass with a fork and stood beside the kitchen island. Her voice lifted just enough to be heard, but not enough to seem rehearsed. "I just want to say how much I appreciate everyone here," she began, clutching her wine glass like a microphone. "This whole process, planning, organizing, managing people, hasn't been easy, especially when some folks feel entitled to share your spotlight." A few chuckles, a couple smirks, eyes darted everywhere but toward me. She kept going. "It's hard setting boundaries, but I've learned that not every voice belongs in the chorus. Some just throw the harmony off." "You're a burden, Lunette." Her speech stung, a public accusation meant to wound. A beat, then more awkward laughter, like people trying not to be dragged into something they knew was wrong, but didn't dare say. I didn't speak. My fork moved without purpose through my salad. Lucas rested his hand over mine, gently pressing down. "Don't," he whispered. "You're enough," his touch vowed, a shield against her venom. I stared at the wineglass in my hand. Not a single drop touched my lips that night. The rest of the dinner blurred. Callista glowed in every photo. I wasn't asked to pose. Neither was Cece. On the ride home, Cece sat in her booster seat, quiet. Too quiet. She usually talked about everything. The color of the napkins, the flavor of lemonade, the sparkle in someone's earrings. But tonight, nothing. She brushed her teeth slowly, barely bubbling the toothpaste, and crawled into bed without asking for a story. I pulled her blanket over her shoulders. She rolled toward the wall. "Auntie said I'm a problem, baby," she whispered, barely audible. "That I ruin pretty things." My hand froze midair. I sat on the edge of her bed and asked gently, "Did she say that to you?" "No," she told Cousin Harper, "but I was right there. I heard it." Her voice cracked on the last word. I smoothed her hair back and kissed her forehead. "You are not a problem, Cece. Not now. Not ever." "You're my world," I thought, her pain igniting a fire in my soul. She didn't answer, just pulled the blanket higher and curled into herself. I stepped into the hallway, blinking hard, trying to control the burn behind my eyes. Lucas was leaning against the doorframe, arms crossed, already knowing. I told him every word. He didn't ask for clarification. He didn't ask if I was sure. He just said quietly but clearly, "Enough. We'll fight for her." His resolve echoed, a vow matching mine. Later that night, when the house had settled into silence, I stood in Cece's room, watching the soft blue light from her nightlight cast shadows across her face. Her bunny was tucked beneath her chin. I walked into our bedroom and pulled out a small weekender bag. I started packing one pair of flats, Cece's dress, her white sandals, her favorite comb. Lucas watched but didn't stop me. "We're bringing her," I said, zipping the bag, "even if we have to sit in the back row of the parking lot." I opened my laptop. The cursor blinked on a blank screen. I typed an email to Callista. It wasn't angry, just clear. "I won't ask for permission to have my child with me. If she's not welcome, we'll still come, but on our terms. Don't mistake silence for agreement." I stared at it, then closed the lid. I wouldn't give her the satisfaction of calling me dramatic. Instead, I curled back into bed, eyes fixed on the baby monitor screen. Cece's chest rose and fell, steady. And in that stillness, I remembered what it felt like to be told I was too much, too emotional, needy. I remembered being told I made things harder by existing too loudly. I wouldn't let that cycle continue. "This ends with me," I whispered. "This family doesn't get to label my daughter. I'll protect you," I vowed, her peace my unyielding mission. The wedding day came with forced smiles, white roses, and one woman waiting for me to obey. Cece woke early. The sun hadn't quite crept across the carpet, but she was already sitting up in bed, hugging her bunny. I rubbed my eyes and forced myself upright. The room was still. Lucas had stepped out for coffee, and the quiet almost felt like peace. Almost. I laid out her dress on the bed, simple ivory cotton with a sage green sash. I smoothed the hem, ran my fingers down the sides. No sequins, no shine, just soft, clean lines. She touched the fabric with reverence. "Do I look okay, Mommy?" I nodded, then reached for something I had kept hidden inside my suitcase pocket. A folded napkin shaped like a leaf. She gasped. "You saved it!" "I told you it was special," I whispered. I pinned it carefully on the sash just above her waist. "You're my strength," I thought, her joy a beacon in my fight. Lucas returned with lukewarm coffee and the silence of a man bracing for battle. He kissed the top of Cece's head, handed me my cup, and barely touched his. By 10:45 a.m., we were checking in at the venue lobby. A younger staff member handed us a key card without so much as eye contact. "Room 308, he said. "The elevator's behind you." In the hallway, my phone buzzed. Callista? You really brought her? You're unbelievable. I stared at the message, my fingers hovered, then tapped out the only reply she deserved. She's family, full stop. I didn't get a response. You can't stop us, I thought, her text a desperate attempt to control. Downstairs, the guests began to arrive in a wave of chiffon, cologne, and soft camera clicks. Lucas adjusted his tie. Cece clutched my hand with her smaller one, eyes wide at the sea of unfamiliar faces. My mother passed us by in the lobby. She didn't break stride. No hello, no smile, no glance at Cece. You've chosen her, I thought. Her silence a final betrayal of her daughter. Instead, Vera, Lucas's mother, walked up and took Cece's hand gently. Hey, sweetheart, she said. I'll sit with her during the reception, Lunette. We'll take shifts if needed, okay? I squeezed her arm. Thank you. Vera met my eyes. I didn't raise cowards, and I didn't raise men who ignore their wives. You're our family now, her strength vowed, a lifeline in the storm. At the ceremony, the chairs were arranged in tight white rows. Callista had planned every detail to the inch. Floral arches, candles floating in tall glass vases, a quartet softly playing in the corner. We found our seats toward the back to the left. Not family row, not even close. Cece sat on my lap, her hands resting on mine. She didn't fidget, she didn't whine, just sat still like she knew this wasn't about celebration anymore. You're my home, her warmth said, anchoring my rage. When the officiant began, Callista stood at the front, practically glowing. She looked radiant. Her dress shimmered with every breath she took. People audibly gasped. She glanced at me once, then again. Both times her gaze lingered just long enough to cut, but not long enough to be seen by anyone else. I noticed my mother leaned towards someone I didn't recognize. Their lips moved. Then they turned in sync and looked at Cece. You're targeting my child, I thought, their glances a chilling threat. Lucas reached over and held my hand. The vows blurred. We are gathered here today echoed around us. But I couldn't focus. My eyes stayed on the girl on my lap, and on the sharpness in Callista's expression every time she looked past me. The ceremony ended with polite applause. People stood, hugs were exchanged. Callista embraced distant cousins, kissed elderly aunts. When she walked past us, her eyes never even flickered in our direction. You're dead to me, her dismissal roared, a public execution of our bond. Back in the hotel suite, Vera sat on the edge of the bed, kicking off her heels. Cece plopped onto the floor and began playing with her bunny, humming to herself. I raised 3 sons, Vera said softly, and none of them needed protecting like you do right now. I didn't respond. I turned toward Cece and noticed the napkin, her little leaf, had come loose. I walked over, knelt down, and pinned it back on without a word. She beamed. You're my reason, I thought, her smile a spark of defiance. Vera watched me. This is Callista's day, she said after a beat. I nodded slowly. Yes, it is. I stood up and looked out the window at the garden below, the rows of chairs now empty. But it's also the last day she gets to believe I'll ever bow to her again. Your reign ends here, I vowed, my heart steeled for the fight ahead. Vera's pale face sliced through the sea of sequins and champagne like a warning bell no one else could hear. She reached me breathless, her hands trembling as she leaned in. She's not in the room, she whispered. Cece's gone. For a second, the air in the ballroom disappeared. I didn't hear the band playing, didn't see the servers weaving through tables. I felt my glass slip from my hand. It shattered on the floor, but I didn't care. I ran. No shoes, no purse, just instinct and panic pounding through my chest as I sprinted toward the elevator, ignoring the startled glances and dropped forks in my wake. Lucas's footsteps followed me close behind. But I didn't stop. She stole my heart, I screamed inside, terror clawing at my soul. On the 3rd floor, Vera's keycard was still in my hand. I slammed it into the reader. The green light flashed. The door swung open. Empty. The bed was neatly made. No bunny, no backpack, no little green sash dress crumpled in a corner. No Cece. I turned slowly, nausea creeping up my spine. "We need security," I said. My voice was low, mechanical. "Now!" Lucas was already pulling out his phone. We rushed back down to the lobby. Hotel management moved quickly once Lucas barked into their faces. Cameras were checked, hallways rewound on silent screens. We waited, staring at motionless video feeds, each second eating at me like acid. A security officer played a clip. Nothing. Then another. Still nothing. Lucas turned toward the ballroom, voice rising. "Callista!" he roared. "Where is my daughter?" "You took her," I thought, her absence a knife twisting in my core. Guests began filtering into the hallway, alarmed by the volume. I didn't care. Kyle, the groom, approached. He looked confused, like someone waking up in the middle of a fire. "She left to freshen up," he stammered, "about 20 minutes ago." I stared at him. "With my child?" He blinked. "She didn't say anything about her jacket is gone," Vera interrupted, appearing behind us. "And her backpack." I turned to the hotel manager. "Pull up all angles of the side exits, now." He hesitated, but the tone in my voice cut through any protest. A few clicks later, another camera feed played. Lobby, south exit, no audio. And there she was, Callista. White dress, sunglasses, walking like she had all the time in the world. Beside her, barefoot and holding her hand, was my daughter Cece. I didn't even wait for the clip to finish. I bolted again, this time through the catering hall, cutting through a service corridor I'd spotted earlier when they'd brought out the cake. Lucas and Vera were steps behind me. We pushed open the door into the back courtyard, a narrow concrete space behind the kitchen, shaded by a fence and tall hedges. And there she was, Callista, sitting on a wrought iron bench like she was in a magazine shoot. One hand cradled Cece, who was asleep, head resting on her shoulder. The other hand held a cigarette. "You touched her," I said, breath catching. She didn't move. She was tired. She needed air. "You took her without asking. You left the venue, you took a child who wasn't yours. She's my niece." I stepped forward and carefully pulled Cece into my arms. Her body was warm, breathing steady. "She's mine," I said quietly. "Not yours to use, not yours to erase." Callista shrugged. "You brought this on yourself. I warned you. She's a child. She ruins everything." "You're a monster," I hissed, her calm a chilling betrayal of my trust. Behind me, Vera let out a gasp. Lucas's fists clenched at his sides. The back door opened again. A server, then a bridesmaid, then someone else. Whispers began. Phone screens lifted. One flash, then two. It spread like spilled wine. "You should have stayed in the background," Callista muttered. "You made this mess. You destroyed us," I thought, her words a spark to my fury. And then the sirens. Red and blue light flooded the courtyard as 2 officers stepped through the gate. "Ma'am," one said firmly. "Step away. Put the cigarette down." Callista stood slowly, eyes narrowed. "I didn't hurt anyone. You left with a child without permission. You failed to notify a guardian. That's unlawful detainment at minimum. She didn't resist, didn't cry. She just looked at me with that cold, effortless disdain she'd spent her whole life perfecting. It was just a lesson," she murmured as they cuffed her hands behind her back. "No," I said, holding Cece tighter. "It was a crime. You'll pay for this," I vowed, her cuffs a symbol of justice won. The crowd parted as they led her away. Vera stayed by my side, wrapping her arm around me. Lucas stood silent, fists still clenched, jaw rigid. I rocked Cece gently, her cheek against my chest, and I didn't feel guilt or pity, only clarity. 5 days had passed. Cece still didn't sleep through the night. Every time the shadows in her room stretched too long or a floorboard creaked, she'd bolt upright, whispering, "Mama!" I slept on the edge of her bed now, not because she asked, but because I couldn't bear not to. That morning she was coloring at the kitchen table, her little fingers gripping a green crayon, trying to stay within the lines of a tree. I was rinsing out her thermos when my phone buzzed, a voicemail. I listened. It was Kyle. She didn't mean harm, she just snapped. Please don't go to court, it'll destroy her career, her future. Just think about Cece growing up with that kind of legacy. You're protecting a criminal, I thought. His plea a hollow shield for her sins. Before I could hit delete, Lucas stepped into the kitchen. His eyes scanned my face, then the phone in my hand. He took it without a word and pressed delete. The message vanished, but the ache didn't. Cece looked up at me and smiled softly, completely unaware that her name had become the center of a legal and social battlefield. That afternoon, a legal email arrived from Callista's attorney. Buried between generic legal phrases was one line that made my skin crawl. We urge your client to consider the social and familial ramifications of formal charges. In other words, think about how you'll look if you go through with this. You're threatening my family, I seethed, their words a desperate ploy to silence me. By evening, I got tagged in a post from one of Callista's bridesmaids, a filtered photo of Callista sitting on her hotel bed, head in hands, mascara slightly smudged for sympathy effect. Caption: some women just need grace. We all have a breaking point. Don't let society punish those who cry for help. The comments were flooded. You're a real one for this. She deserves love, not lawsuits. And then some moms used their kids as shields. I didn't comment. I didn't react, but I saved the post. You're rewriting her crime, I thought. There lies a public assault on truth. At night, my cousin Lisa messaged me privately. She started with, "Hey girl, just checking in," and ended with, "Do you really want to be the vindictive sister forever? Forgiveness looks better than court." I stared at the message for 10 full minutes before deleting it. You're complicit, Lisa, I thought, her words a betrayal of our bond. The next morning, Vera sat down with her coffee looking paler than usual. Callista plans to release a video, she said softly. She says it shows Cece was calm, that it proved she wasn't in danger. The video dropped 2 hours later. It was clipped, edited with gentle piano music, muted pastels, and a slow pan of Callista holding Cece outside the hotel. Cece was quiet in her lap. No struggling, no screaming, just a sleepy 4-year-old and an aunt with a glazed-over smile. The headline read, "Aunt or Abductor, the Internet Debates." For a moment, I wondered if this was it. If this was the narrative that would stick. But I hadn't forgotten the security footage, and neither had my brother-in-law, Neil, an IT systems manager who'd always kept receipts longer than necessary. That afternoon, he forwarded me the raw video. "You might want this," he wrote. I clicked play. Same scene, different feed, no filters, no edits. Callista outside the hotel, holding Cece by the arm. She glanced up at the security camera, smirked, and muttered, "Let's see how long Mommy takes to figure this out." I didn't gasp. I didn't cry. I sent it to Lucas, then Vera. Then I uploaded it silently to the family group chat. No caption, no emoji, no call-out, just the truth. And the chat went dead. Not one comment, not one rebuttal, not even a "let's talk this out." You're exposed, Callista, I thought, the truth a blazing sword that cut through her lies. At dinner, the prosecutor called to confirm Callista's plea hearing date. Vera was unusually quiet, stirring her mashed potatoes without lifting her fork. Then, just before she stood up, she whispered, "This family was built on pretending. You broke that." I placed my napkin on the table and looked at her. "I didn't break the family," I said. "I broke the silence." "I'm done hiding," I vowed, my voice a quiet rebellion that echoed in my heart. Later that night, Cece fell asleep with her arms around her stuffed rabbit. The leaf-shaped napkin I'd folded still pinned to her pajama shirt like armor. The house was quiet, but my thoughts were not. No more excuses, no more bending, no more silence. The courtroom was humming with a kind of electric hush. Low voices, shuffling heels, breath held like prayers. The room smelled of old wood and cold coffee. I sat between Lucas and my attorney, my palms pressed flat against my skirt to stop them from shaking. Callista walked in like she owned the silence. Her hair was curled just enough, Her makeup soft, her sweater a demure shade of beige. Everything about her screamed, "Look how fragile I am," and still she didn't glance in my direction. "You're a fraud," I thought. Her facade a chilling lie meant to deceive. The judge, a man with graying temples and tired eyes, called the room to order. Callista's lawyer rose, as confident as if this were a misunderstanding at brunch. "Your Honor," he began, "this was an unfortunate overreaction by a stressed bride, an isolated lapse in judgment, my client's mental state at the time. I tuned him out after that. I wasn't here to listen to rationalizations. I was here to name the truth out loud. When it was my turn to take the stand, I didn't bring notes. I didn't need to rehearse pain. I had lived it. I had slept beside it for nights, watched it twist my daughter's dreams into cries in the dark. I'm not here to punish her," I said, my voice steady. "I'm here because someone has to tell the truth, not just about what happened that day, but what's been happening in this family for years." I turned toward the judge. "If I lie now, if I stay quiet for the sake of appearances, what lesson does that teach my daughter? You erased us for years," I accused silently, my pain a public cry that demanded justice. There was a stillness in the room. Even Callista stopped fidgeting with her bracelet. I lifted my phone and played the video. There she was, my sister. Callista in sunglasses holding Cece by the wrist, and then that smirk, that cruel whisper. "Let's see how long Mommy takes to figure this out." Not one gasp, just silence, wide and heavy as stone. Her attorney didn't object. There was no rebuttal, only the scratch of the judge's pen as he made his notes. The verdict came faster than I expected. "Miss Callista Roos," the judge said, his voice clipped, "you are hereby sentenced to 150 hours of community service and mandatory psychological counseling. This judgment will remain on public record. I suggest you reflect on what family really means. No jail time, but no sweeping it under the rug either. Justice, not vengeance," I thought, the gavel a solemn echo of truth's triumph. Outside, the light was cold and clean. Kyle approached me in the courtyard. Lucas stepped between us without a word. Kyle raised both hands, palms open. "She didn't mean it, Lunette. Then she shouldn't have planned it," Lucas said before I could. "You're shielding a villain," I thought, his retreat a coward's flight from accountability. Kyle dropped his hands and walked away. We stood there for a long time watching families exit the courthouse, mothers holding small hands, fathers tucking coats around sleepy shoulders. Vera came over, her voice low. "You changed this family forever." I didn't say sorry. I didn't explain. I just said, I didn't change it. I told the truth. I'm free of your lies, I thought. My truth a hard-won shield that protected my daughter. On the ride home, Cece sat in her booster seat, her head resting against the window. We passed a billboard for a toy store and she whispered, "Was it because I was bad?" My heart split in half. I reached into my purse and pulled out the old napkin, the one I'd folded into a leaf. It had been through so much, wrinkled, soft at the edges but still whole. "No, baby," I said, placing it gently in her lap. "This is why I fought. Because you are good. Because you are worth everything." She stared at it like it was gold. "You're my reason," I thought. Her innocence the fire that fueled my battle. That night, after Cece brushed her teeth and curled up in her bed, she padded softly into the living room. She looked around, then reached up and placed the napkin on the mantel. Lucas and I watched in silence. He finally spoke. "Funny how something so small says everything." I nodded. "It used to mean we were ignored," I said. "Now it means we're done being erased." She didn't say a word. She just turned and smiled at us, her eyes full of peace for the first time in days. "We're whole," I thought, her smile a fragile victory born from pain. We didn't need confetti or balloons. Just a folded napkin, a truth spoken, and a little girl finally safe. 6 weeks passed, just enough time for the leaves to start turning, for the air to cool, for people to pretend they'd always been kind. Callista hadn't reached out. Not a text, not a whisper. Her absence was as loud as her drama had been. Kyle, I heard, moved 2 states away, packed up, and left alone. My side of the family, silence, except Vera. She started coming around every Friday afternoon, always bringing something Cece liked. Apple slices, a puzzle, once even a small framed photo of the 3 of us from years ago. She never apologized, not outright, but she never looked away from Cece again either. You see her now, I thought. Her presence a quiet amends that spoke louder than words. Cece had started preschool. Her teacher told me she's a quiet thinker, but when she speaks, she sees more than most kids her age. I nodded, but didn't explain. How could I? How do you tell someone your daughter grew up 3 years in 3 weeks? The napkin leaf sat on our mantel now, no longer crumpled. We had pressed it, dried it, and placed it behind glass. Lucas had asked me once, quietly, should we take it down now? I shook my head. Not yet. Maybe not ever. It's our story, I thought, a symbol of survival etched in our hearts. That afternoon, Vera invited us to a small dinner, just a few people. Familiar faces who had once looked away. I didn't want to go, but I went. The meal was quiet. No one talked about court, or Callista, or the fact that I'd shattered the unspoken agreement of pretending. But before dessert, one aunt, my mother's cousin, reached across the table. Her voice cracked just slightly. I didn't know what to say when it happened, she said. But I should have said something. I nodded. That was enough. Not everything needs a speech. Some things just need to be said once. You're late, but heard, I thought. Her words a small bridge over a fractured past. The next morning, I walked Cece to school. The wind carried the smell of pine and distant rain. She stopped halfway down the sidewalk and pointed to a tree whose leaves had curled into soft golds and rust reds. That one, she said, looks like the leaf I made. I crouched beside her. It does, I said, and just like that leaf, we're growing somewhere new. Later that day, back home, I found myself in the attic, sorting through boxes I hadn't touched in years. My old wedding album slipped from one stack, landing open on the hardwood floor. A photo slid out. Me and Callista, maybe 10 and 7, sitting at the Thanksgiving kids' table, gluing paper feathers onto construction paper turkeys. She had glitter on her cheeks. I had glue on my chin. We looked happy. I didn't cry. I didn't burn it. I didn't frame it either. I just placed it in a different box, one labeled Before. We were sisters once, I thought, the memory a quiet ache that lingered. That night, Cece fell asleep in my arms on the porch. The sky was a soft lavender, the air thick with crickets, and the faraway bark of someone's dog. Lucas brought out 2 mugs of tea, set one beside me, and sat on the other rocker. We didn't talk much. Some peace comes with words, some just comes. I watched the horizon and thought she wanted to teach me a lesson. But I hope someday she learns hers, that love doesn't mean control, that silence isn't the same as peace, that families aren't just who we're born to, they're who we choose to protect, and that a little girl's folded napkin can mean everything when the world tries to erase her. I fought for you, Cece, I whispered, my heart heavy but whole, scarred yet standing. Cece stirred in my lap, then settled back down, her hand curled into mine. We stayed like that until the stars showed up, quiet and sure of themselves,